This talk is about based on the chapter 3 of Buddha's Brain, and it's entitled The Second Arrow. And there was a discussion earlier, and a lot of people in our earlier discussion talked about things going wrong. There are robberies, there are burglaries, there's frozen pipes, there's TIAs, there's TGAs, there's medical problems. And with the second arrow is about difficulties, tragedies happen in life, and they're unavoidable. But the second arrow is about taking that situation and letting it drive you into, or allowing yourself to be driven into depression, into sadness, inability to respond to it, inability to see what beauty there is in life. And this quote was in the chapter, Happiness. Ultimately, happiness comes down to choosing between the discomfort of becoming aware of your mental afflictions and the discomfort of being ruled by them. And what I felt happens in the discussions we just had is people recognize they're a problem and recognize that they're afraid, that they don't want the second, that they are aware of what could happen and are avoiding the second arrow. You deal with the problems, you try to fix the plumbing, you fix the house, and move on and not catastrophize about it. Even if it is a catastrophe, it's being able to put it in perspective and being able to move on. And I've already probably done it in describing the first arrow. What is it? When things go wrong, our reaction often is it can be something that makes the situation worse. And when things go wrong, there's a word in that I've heard that I like, is anguish. Anguish is a feeling we have when things do go wrong. That anguish might drive us to do things that we regret. And I want to read a couple quotes from the book. First starts are the unpleasant things that happen to us, the things that we either couldn't avoid or didn't avoid. The problem is then we add our reactions to them. These reactions are the second darts, the ones we throw ourselves. Most of our suffering comes from second darts. It is our reactivity which is triggered. Anguish is a word. Anguish that the world isn't the way we want it to be. And the world definitely isn't the way. It is not fair, and it is difficult. What triggers the second arrow, from a Buddhist perspective, there are three poisons. And so these psychological poisons, greed, and this is, I'm reading directly from the book, greed makes me rigid about how I want things to be. I want the world to be centered around me, work out for me, and it's not that way. I want more and more of everything, except problems, and I want less and less of them. Hatred gets me all bothered and angry. You know, when other people do things that we don't like, that don't serve us well, we feel hatred. And hatred often drives us into things like revenge and then a cycle of violence, or saying things that we later regret, or breaking up relationships. What was said was said. Hatred blocks out our ability to go back and think about what happened, try and get a healing discussion going instead of an attack discussion going. Delusion is the third poison, and it tricks me into taking the situation personally. And I mean, when someone says, for example, if someone should call me stupid, I can take it personally and get angry at them. But as I get comfortable in my own skin, you know, when someone says that I'm stupid, my first thought may be, this poor person, I'm not stupid. That poor person is probably chasing friends away. And the people that do things that annoy me the most are usually lonely people. They've chased a lot of friends away. And it's so much better for me if I have compassion for them than if I have anger. So psychologically, we get triggered. We want the world different than we are. So we get psychologically triggered. And what this book is particularly good is talking about physiologically how we get triggered. And again, I'll read some quotes from the book. Suffering cascades through your body via sympathetic nervous system and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis of the endocrine hormonal system. Let me stop and try and put it in more simple words. Part of our brain is an amygdala, and prehistoric animals had amygdala, and amygdala isn't required for our ancestors, that when there was a danger, adrenaline got triggered and you ran away. You see a tiger, you run. We have a prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking mind. But for us to survive as a species, we needed both. Well, we needed an amygdala for immediate dangers. And it is true that if a tiger came up, your adrenaline would be triggered before the prefrontal cortex would say, there's a lion, it may come after me, and you think about it. And that split second can make the difference of your life or not. So it's got to trigger the adrenaline and the cortisone to keep you alive. And so from our animal beginnings, we're really an animal. There's a system that just drives this adrenaline. And when the adrenaline going, it literally sucks the blood out of the brain, puts it into the adrenaline, and you're pumped up and not thinking clearly. Your prefrontal cortex isn't acting. This is why, and this is a quote from the book, this is why getting rejected can feel as bad as a root canal. We're not under physical threat, but psychological threat we handle as if it were a physical threat, and the adrenaline starts going. Another quote from the book, even just anticipating a challenging event, such as giving a talk next week, can have as much impact as living through it for real. By the way, the total global amnesia that I had, one of the causes can be stress. And I was giving a talk to a new group, and that could have been part. There was an out-of-town guest, and there were some other things going on. And before that happened, there was a lot of stress going on. And that stress gets you physiologically out of shape and can block your ability to think clearly and slow down your mind. And the last quote from the book is, whatever the source of the threat, the amygdala sounds the alarm, setting off several reactions. The mental consequences of all this activity, and it produces anxiety. And in medical terms, and again, I'll quote from the book, repeated SNS HPAA activity makes the amygdala more reactive to apparent threats, which in turn increases SNS HPA activation, which sensitizes the amygdala further. So you get in this loop. You have this anxiety, you're afraid, then things are less likely to work out well, and you get more and more anxious. And then another quote, not only all this physiological triggering, meanwhile, frequently SNS HPA activation wears down the hippocampus, which is vital for forming explicit memories, clear records of what actually happened. So when your adrenaline's flowing, you're not seeing the world as it really is. You've got a pumped up view of it. And there are two mental consequences. One is anxiety, the other is a depressed mood. All this adrenaline going around. Over time, glucocorticoids lower the production of dopamine. This leads to a loss of enjoyment of activities once found pleasurable, another classic criterion for depression. So what's the solution? Before or after a stressful event, psychologically stressful event, do what we just did before and what we're going to do next, of just take long, slow, deep breaths, of try to get your mind focused on the present moment. Another quote I wanted to read from the book, as the saying goes, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Mm.
And I take this to mean the first arrow of pain. You're eventually going to have cuts, bruises, pains in your body, flooding, TIAs. That's pain. But how we respond to it, the suffering, the psychological suffering, is always optional. Part of the problem is really what's going on in your head. And what I see happening, and I think happens to a lot of people, there becomes to be a narrative you build about the first arrow. That narrative replays itself, you ruminate. And in my case, with the brief incident I had, the TGA, then I start worrying, will it happen again? Is this a sign of something worse? And that'll create anxiety. And then when that anxiety is created, then I can't think clearly. And then I'll forget things, and then I'll question my memory, and this cycle continues. And again, reading from the book, if you can simply stay present with whatever is arising in awareness, whether it's a first dart or a second dart, without reacting further, then you will break the chain of suffering right there. And what I want to point out something now, being conscious of something. You can be driving a car and drive 500 miles. You won't hit anybody. You won't go through any red lights. You're conscious enough to keep the car going in the right direction. But your mind may be off on some problem. And you're not aware that your mind is off in Never Never Land. And if it's in Never Never Land with negativity, negative narratives, then you're going to arrive at your destination really upset when nothing has happened on the trip except your mind repeating it. And as we develop, we understand, just intellectually understanding this process, uh, can be step one. We know something goes wrong. We know the adrenaline will be triggered. We know we'll have the thoughts. And if we just know that, it's a good first step. And what will eventually happen is we will intellectually understand it. Then we will be triggered. It's hard to stop it. We've been that way forever. And we'll go through and have the reactivity and do something we regret. And this will keep happening for a while, but we'll keep saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Afterwards, you'll say you shouldn't have done it. The third step is you'll be triggered. You'll realize you were triggered. You're so angry, you say, I need to say this anyway. Then eventually you'll get to the point where you're triggered, you know you're triggered, and you say, I'm not going to do it. And eventually you'll get to the point where I'm in a situation, the person says it and said, I'm not going to bite that hook. They said it, I'm not going to let it upset me. And over time, maybe even without meditation, just understanding the philosophy, you can go a long way in stopping it. I really feel that for many years, even though I was teaching meditation, even I was doing maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes once every third day or something, I had enough understanding and enough of this that it really was helpful. And I'm finding the more that I meditate, the earlier I catch things, the less likely I am to react. And what I'd like to do now is, well, let me actually just stop right now. Okay. And now what I'd like to close off the session with is a guided meditation. And we'll break it down into several parts where I'll be starting out with trying to trigger the relaxation response by long, slow breathing, deep breathing, and then allow you to focus on the breath. And then, if we have enough time, go ahead and do a body scan. So go ahead and find a position that you feel comfortable with. If you'd like to lie down, that's fine. If you want to sit in the lotus posture, that's fine. Or if you want to sit on a chair or a couch. It might be helpful to allow your back to be straight. If you're in a chair, it may be helpful to have your feet flat on the ground. And first of all, to trigger the relaxation response, count to 3 as you breathe in. Count to 3 as you breathe out. And if you feel comfortable, increase the count. Breathe a little bit deeper, a little bit longer at your own pace, but never go beyond 10 or reach the point where you feel stressed. Now continue to breathe deeply. But focus on a place in your body where you feel the breath most vividly. If you're not sure, focus on your nostrils and feel the sensation as your breath, as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Continue to breathe long, slow, and deep. If you feel comfortable, stop the counting and just focus on the felt sense. Or if you prefer, do both. Or if you prefer just the felt sense. Either the felt sense, the counting, or both. Be really curious. Is there more air coming through your right nostril or your left nostril? How vividly do you feel that sensation? Does the length of the breath change? Is the air warm or cold as you breathe in? Is it warm or cold as you breathe out? Be curious. Now, if you feel comfortable, instead of breathing deeply, just breathe naturally and see if you can still have the felt sense of the breath. Focus on the felt sense of the breath. Eventually, there'll be a wave of experience, a thought, or an emotion. When that happens, gently, lovingly, compassionately, kindly, bring your attention back to your breath And notice the tone of the voice that you speak to yourself with. Is it compassionate? Are you kind to yourself? Are you loving to yourself? Our minds wander. It's okay. We all make mistakes. It's okay. But we can always be kind to ourselves, gentle with ourselves. Now picture someone that you love deeply. Visualize them. In your own words, let them know how important they are to you, how much you love them. Visualize them smiling back at you and you smiling at them. You have a mutually nurturing relationship. Savor that feeling. Know that you are loved. They know that they are loved. It's a bond of love. Savor the feeling of loving kindness that you're experiencing now. Remember what it feels like in your body to feel love and be loved. And now think of things that you are grateful for. It could be friends or family. It can be for your health. It could be for the beauty of nature. Think of all the different things that we can be grateful for and the people we are grateful to. What does this feeling of gratitude feel like in your body? Savor that feeling of gratitude. All of us have so much to be grateful for. Savor the gratitude. Now think of someone you know that's suffering and wish them well. Wish that their suffering would end. Visualize them, smile at them, see them smiling back at you. And sometimes empathy, caring, love does have a healing impact. It inspires other people, encourages other people. Let the person know how much you love and care. And how does compassion feel in your body? How does it feel to love others and wish them well? Savor that. This meditation has 4 micro practices in there. The long, slow breath, triggering the relaxation response. Loving kindness, of sharing love with someone else. Of compassion, wishing others well, wishing them peace. And gratitude, identifying the wonderful things that we have in our lives. And throughout the day, constantly remind yourself of love, loving kindness, compassion, gratitude, and the ability to find peace and relaxation by just breathing deeply to help you face the inevitable challenges in life. May you be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to you. May you always meet with spiritual success. May you also have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable problems, difficulties, and failures in life. May you rise above them with morality, integrity, forgiveness, compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. I want to thank everyone for being here today, for your presence, for your input, for your encouragement to each other, and for your wisdom. You have a wonderful day ahead, a wonderful week. And when you're ready, stretch out. Thank you, thank you, thank you.